It's the one thing every single one of us has in common. Our bodies change over time. It's a universal journey, right? But here's the thing, it doesn't have to be something that just happens to us. So the real question is, how do we get a handle on these changes and actually steer ourselves toward a healthier, more empowered life? All right, let's get into it.
So here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to cover 5 key areas. First, we'll start with the basics of what's happening inside our bodies. Then we'll explore the very different hormonal paths for males and females. We'll tackle some major cancer risks and how to prevent them. We'll also look at the huge role that access to care plays in our health. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with a practical playbook you can start using today.
All right, first up, our bodies, our timeline. We're kicking things off with those fundamental internal shifts that pretty much everyone goes through as we get older. So let's just get right to the big question. What's really going on under the hood as we age? We're talking about things happening deep down at the cellular level. Like our metabolism slowing down, our body composition shifting a bit more from muscle to fat, and even a gradual decrease in bone density. Think of these as the universal undercurrents of aging that really set the stage for everything else we're going to talk about. And that leads us perfectly into our second section, the Great Hormonal Divide. Because it turns out, when you look at hormonal aging, male and female bodies are on completely different schedules and pathways. It's pretty fascinating. Now, what's so striking here is the sheer difference in pacing. For females, the change is incredibly rapid, like a steep drop-off in hormones happening over just a year or two, usually around age 50. But for males, it's a much, much slower burn. Testosterone production starts to dip a little after age 30, but it happens so gradually that the effects might not be obvious for decades. So let's zoom in on menopause for a second. It's officially defined by the ovaries just stopping production of key hormones, especially estrogen. And because so many parts of the female body rely on estrogen, this sudden drop brings on some really significant physical changes. Everything from a shrinking uterus to those infamous hot flashes so many women experience. Meanwhile, over in the male body, a very common change is something called benign prostatic hypertrophy, or BPH. This is a non-cancerous growth of the prostate. And get this, it affects a staggering 80% of men over 60. And the source material uses this brilliant analogy to explain the problem. As the prostate gets bigger, it squeezes the urethra. It's literally like putting a clamp on a garden hose. Simple as that. So here's the most important point about all this. These physical changes, while they're real, they absolutely do not have to mean the end of a fulfilling sex life. Not at all. Sure, male sexual response might slow down a bit, and female vaginal dryness can happen, but that's treatable. In fact, a lot of times when people withdraw from sexual activity, it has less to do with their bodies and way more to do with other life stuff, like losing a partner, dealing with stress, or even side effects from medication. Okay, let's shift gears for our third section. We're moving from those largely unavoidable biological changes of aging into the world of preventable risks. We're going to focus on cancer and the incredible power that comes with knowledge and early detection. Let's start with what is basically a modern medical miracle. Almost all cervical cancer is caused by just one virus, HPV. And this right here is the game changer. We have a vaccine that can prevent a whopping 90% of those cancers. And it's not just for cervical cancer. It also helps prevent several other cancers in both females and males. It's one of the most powerful preventative tools we've ever had. But, and this is a really big but, prevention and treatment aren't experienced the same way by everyone. This chart shows a really stark difference in outcomes. The 5-year survival rate for cervical cancer is 68% for white women, but it drops all the way to 56% for Black women. And the sources we looked at suggest this is tied to differences in screening, follow-up care, and overall access to health resources. Now let's turn our attention to prostate cancer. This is the most common cancer diagnosed in men, period. And the key risk factors? They're pretty well established. Getting older, having African ancestry, and having a close relative who was diagnosed with it. And since early-stage prostate cancer often has no symptoms at all, screening is everything. This timeline lays out exactly when you should start talking about it with a doctor. If you're at the highest risk, that conversation starts at age 40. For those at high risk, like Black men, it's age 45. And for men at average risk, you should get that discussion on the calendar by age 50. Now, when we talk about colorectal cancer, this chart is just so empowering because it's all about modifiable risks.
These are the things you can actually do something about. We're talking diet, physical activity, obesity, heavy alcohol use, and smoking. Over half of all cases are linked to these factors. That means a huge part of prevention is truly in our own hands.
But check this out. Here's a really surprising and frankly concerning trend. Because we've gotten so good at screening, colorectal cancer rates have actually gone down in older adults. That's the good news. The strange part? At the very same time, the rates have been going up in younger adults, and we're still figuring out why. This is a huge public health flag.
This leads us right into our fourth section, the health equity factor. Because, our health isn't just about our own biology or the choices we make. It's also deeply, profoundly shaped by bigger systems, and maybe most importantly, our access to good care.
I want you to really take in this quote. It's from a major study in the Veterans Affairs Health System, which provides equal access to care. And what they found was incredible. In that system, the historical gap in prostate cancer deaths between Black and white men, it completely vanished. This just powerfully illustrates a fundamental truth. Giving everyone equal access to high-quality healthcare is one of the most important things we can do to eliminate these racial health disparities.
And we see these kinds of disparities in other areas too. Just look at this table for colorectal cancer. The incidence rates are highest among Black persons, then Native American and Alaska Native persons. The sources suggest that a big reason for this might be different levels of access to screening tests and how often they're used.
Okay, let's bring it all home. For our final section, we're taking everything we've learned and putting it into your proactive health playbook. This is where we turn information into action with clear, concrete steps you can take to be the one in the driver's seat of your own health. First up, for the guys, here is a simple but vital routine, the testicular self-exam. And the TSE method makes it super easy to remember. T is for timing. Do it once a month. S is for shower, because warm water helps everything relax. And E is for examine. You're checking for any changes, especially a firm, painless lump. And if you find anything, you report it to a doctor right away.
So let's quickly lock in those key screening milestones we talked about. For cervical cancer, remember, HPV testing every 5 years for women between 25 and 65. For colorectal cancer, that starting age is now 45 for most people. And for prostate cancer, the most important thing is to start that conversation with your doctor, as early as age 40, depending on your personal risk.
So at the end of the day, what's the big picture here? Well, we've seen that the hormonal timelines for men and women are just fundamentally different. We've learned that screening isn't just another test. It is one of the most powerful tools you have. We've seen how equal access to care can literally save lives and close survival gaps. And it all leads back to this one central idea. Knowledge, when you combine it with proactive steps, is your absolute best defense. And all of that leaves us with one final and really crucial question. We've laid out the health playbook, right? We know the steps individuals can take, but knowing the plays is one thing. How do we, as a society, make sure that every single person, no matter who they are or where they come from, actually gets a fair chance to get in the game?